Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the North Sydney Local Planning Panel. We have 8 items on the agenda this afternoon, and 7 of these are development applications, and the last one is a planning proposal. The panel has had the opportunity of reading the officer's report, which has been available on the website, as have the public had the opportunity, and we individually have inspected sites in this, even though COVID restrictions are easing, that is the way that we have participated for this. I will just say that the process this afternoon is that we will hear from submitters and any objectors to a development proposal. Then we will invite the applicant and his or her representatives in terms of planners and architects to address the panel. And in addressing the panel, they should be mindful of any objections they have heard so that they can respond to those as well. The panel is independent of the council. We come together once a month to determine just a small percentage of development applications that are not delegated to staff. And this afternoon on the agenda, we have a number of applications that qualify for having more than 10 objections, and that is the reason that many of them are here this afternoon. I will briefly introduce myself and then I'll ask each panel member to introduce themselves. I'm Jan Morrell. I'm a town planner of some 40 years experience. I sit on a number of local planning panels as well as the state panel as an expert or a chair. And prior to retirement, I was a full-time commissioner for 14 years with the Land and Environment Court. I'll invite Tony Caro to introduce himself.
Hi everyone, Tony Caro. I'm a semi-retired Sydney architect and urban designer. Like Jan, I work for various state government agencies on design review panels and local councils on design review panels and local planning panels.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name's Ian Pickles. I've been a town planner for over 40 years in both local councils and in private practice. And I've been on this current North Sydney panel, a member of this panel or its predecessor for about 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
My name is Ken Robinson. I'm the community representative on the panel. I'm a resident of North Sydney and my background is in environmental science and planning over many years.
Thank you. And we have all filled out a declaration in terms of having no conflicts of interest. I would like each of the panel members to confirm that. I have no conflict.
No conflicts.
No conflict.
No conflict.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to the first item, which is 19 Bennett Street, Cremorne, and this is for alterations and additions to a heritage item, in particular a tennis pavilion, fencing, tennis fencing, driveway, widening, landscaping and removal of trees. And I have a submitter who wishes to address the panel, and I will say that the panel has received a written submission from Mr. Jeffrey Kells, and can I invite you, Mr. Kells, to address the panel? Thank you. You're on mute, so if you can, thank you. Good. Mr. Kells.
Right, thank you. I was just getting that straight. My interest is solely to do with the canopy trees, which are between my property and the driveway to number 19. And before I start, I should apologise. I made 2 mistakes in the one pager that I submitted to you in points 3 and points 5, where I had overlooked 5 canopy trees, which I define as non-palm trees, which will be over 5 metres at maturity, that is proposed to be planted in that area. So where I said in those 2 points there was a net loss of 12 canopy trees, that was wrong. It should have said 7. However, my concern is that all 16 trees, which are currently in the council report as agreed to be removed, are mature trees, and it will be many years before any real canopy is restored. Having said that, the request I make of the panel are in two areas. The first is in the general canopy that I've just described. I hope that you might keep either all of T1s to T12, which are a major part of that canopy, or if
and in that regard, Mr. Kells, you're referring to the crepe myrtles?
Yes.
Thank you.
If you say, well, no, that's not reasonable, then I would say, well, please could you then only remove T3, 4 and 5? Those are the 3 crepe myrtles which are in the site of the building of the pavilion itself. And my third request is, well, if you don't agree with that and you say, no, we support the council's proposal that T1 to 12 be removed, then could you please add some more what I called canopy trees? In my point 5, I'd asked for 6. My maths was wrong. I should have asked for 3, not 6. So I've got that 3-stage request. My 2 other points are, that's not me, the council has, in my point 6, has requested an extra, I don't know how you pronounce it, it's a tuckaroo, a Capaniopsis. And they've simply said that additional tree should be somewhere within the site. So I would ask that that be included in the site that I am talking about between the driveway and my boundary. In all the numbers that I have just corrected, I have assumed that to be the case. And my last point is, there is another tree on the verge between just near the boundary. It doesn't appear on any of these plans. It is to the east of T31.
I'll just interrupt you there for one moment. This is the new crepe myrtle that's in the... Yes, thank you.
Yes, it's already planted there. I have a bond on it, and apart from my bond, it's an important tree. I think it should be listed alongside T31 as worthy of being protected and retained. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you, Mr. Kells. And I understand that you do have a bond on that crepe myrtle, and I've also been advised that you may apply to have that that bond refunded at any time now. Yes.
Well, thank you for that. I still hope that you will protect and retain it.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kells. Now, I don't have any other objectors or submitters. Is there anybody out there that would like to address the panel on this particular matter? Very well. We'll now move to the applicant's representatives, and I have William Dangar, the landscape architect, and I have Robert Weir, the heritage consultant, and Tina Ho, the applicant. So I'm in your hands as to who you would like to address me first.
It's William Dangar. I'll probably go first on the landscape, and then I'll hand over to the architect consultants, if that's okay.
Yes.
So just a bit of a background, our practice has been operating in this space for some 30 years, and we're not in the business of necessarily removing trees or reducing canopy amenity. But what we are in the business of is creating an outcome for our client and for the site and for the local community that we believe is more appropriate for what my client wants to do. So in accordance to the documents provided back to us by council, their assessment states that our plans and our proposed trees and landscape is actually better for Federation style landscape. And we would argue that the reason that we're asking for the trees like the crepe myrtles to be removed is not because we don't like the tree, but because of the new boundary alignment. Those trees were in an old boundary alignment, which now no longer has relevance to our site. So they are in the middle of the landscape. So therefore we would say, well, they need to be relocated or removed because they're no longer appropriate to this site. We have therefore then implemented a new landscape scheme that actually for a lot of the objectors improves the view, but also is evergreen. With that, that council's also stipulated that we implement a couple more trees that we're more than happy to do. But I believe that what we're proposing, and council obviously supports this, is a far better outcome than what's there now for the community as well as my clients, which was their wish. So the only thing that we feel strongly about in the council conditions on our DA is the fact that they wish us to retain the liquid amber T36, which we would argue that we believe should go, because for a number of reasons. It's low value in terms of the arborist and their report, but also we're setting up this landscape for generations to come. And I don't believe that that tree has the longevity to survive the next 100 years. So that's why we've proposed for it to be removed.
So can I just ask you, Mr. Dangar, it doesn't have the longevity. What sort of life expectancy would you put on it?
I'd have to refer to the arborist on, or defer to the arborist on that, but I wouldn't see that tree surviving for the next 50 years. And what we're trying to do here is to say set up a landscape, and we've had examples of this in other municipalities where we've said, look, we're happy for you to condition a replacement tree. However, we want this landscape to be set up so that for future generations, it provides the amenity and character for the street, which is what everyone wants.
Okay, just another question, Mr. Dangar, and that's in respect of if the panel was minded, and I don't know whether it is at all, to allow T36 to be removed, what canopy tree would you be anticipating for its replacement?
Well, I think we haven't really considered what that may be, but we would be more than happy to replace another tree of similar size in a similar location. It just needed to be a new, like a new tree.
And can you give me an idea of what sort of tree you would recommend?
For that space, probably be deciduous, so something like a sapien or even a crepe myrtle, which is already in, like we could even transplant one of those crepe myrtles to another location on the site. But a smaller canopy tree, but also deciduous. But I think the other thing is there's a benefit for the views across the other side. If they're complaining about our landscape diminishing their views, well, the liquid amber is probably the largest tree that's doing that anyway. So I think so you say, if you asked me what my outcome would be sure, I'm happy to be conditioned for another reasonably mature canopy tree of a similar scale to go back into that site, but not in that necessarily in that location. But okay, certainly on the site somewhere. We have the room.
And a deciduous one at that.
Yes, it needs to be deciduous for amenity, but I think also for the character of the site.
Okay then, fine. And would you like to make some comments in response to the submitters' concerns?
There's a lot of them. I won't go through them all one by one, but I think my overarching view of a lot of the objections is they're taken individually rather than looked at as a whole. So some of them are saying that we're removing a whole bunch of trees. Now, realistically, we're not denying that we're not taking trees out, but all the Kentia palms that are on site are being transplanted.
And I'm pleased to say that that's good, yes.
Yep, and I think in some of the objections, they're saying that we're removing all those trees. Well, they're not. They just haven't read through the documentation properly.
All right,
and we're not denying that the crepe myrtles are going. We can't fit them all on the site. But they from the boundary realignment, which was a previous DA, they're not relevant anymore. And it's hard for me to then provide a sensible landscape that suits my client's needs with those trees running down the middle of the site.
Okay, well, I just asked you a couple of specific questions that came out of the submitters' concerns, and that was, could the tuckaroo be planted near that boundary?
Yes.
And the other question was, I suppose, the crepe myrtles, I understand that they do represent an old boundary, but is there any opportunity for a couple of the crepe myrtles to be incorporated into the landscape design?
They certainly could be. We have a couple of deciduous trees that we could modify and replace with those. But the issue for me is because those trees have been planted so close together, they actually don't have, in terms of when we look at arboriculture, really, some of them don't have the greatest form or habit. So
I understand that, but I was just wondering if there's an opportunity to retain one or two of them.
I think no more than 2 would be
Okay.
Yeah.
Rightio, thank you. And then the other question that was raised was with respect to the crepe myrtle on the verge, which isn't identified on the landscape plan, and no doubt it would require a tree protection zone.
Which obviously the reason it doesn't form part of our submission because it's not in our land, but yes, absolutely, we look to retain and protect that tree in accordance with the Australian standards.
Yes, fine. Thank you very much. I'll just see if the rest of the panel have any questions for you.
Yes, Tony Caro speaking. I just have a question in relation to the detailed design of the retractable tennis court fence and related to that lighting. We know.
Oh yes, that might be more for the architect. But
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that was for just for William. Sorry. Yes. Okay.
So I'll let Robert handle that one.
Yes. Okay. Do you have any questions of that? Very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Dangar. And Mr. Weir, if I could invite you to address the panel.
Yes, we're the architects and heritage consultants for this, which is primarily a landscape scheme. I recognise that. We had, I must say, the lion's share of the work was done by Will Dangar. We offered advice on the design of the pavilion in keeping with the rest of the structures on the site.
Turn it up a bit.
Can you hear me?
I'm just asking for you to be turned up a little bit. Yep.
Okay, let me see if I can do that.
TV remote.
Is that better?
Just one moment more.
Peter, TV remote.
TV remote. Yep.
Oh, I see, your volume, not mine.
Yeah. Well, no, not so that we're any louder, but so that you are. Okay.
Yep.
So that part of that, with relation to the tennis court, at the moment the tennis court has a sort of a cyclone fence on a rather rickety timber frame, and so the idea is to replace that, to maintain the frame actually, but to in areas of it put a curtain, if you like. You've probably seen them. They're a nylon tennis court curtain that will, and the idea of that is to do that adjacent to the new garden, so that the garden and the tennis court can be read as one across the site. What?
No, keep going the other way, Peter. Yep, that's it. Sorry, Mr. Weir. Righty, if you could just start that again.
Okay, so there's an existing tennis court fence and lighting around the tennis court that was there when the clients bought the property. The tennis court fencing at the moment is a series of timber posts with, in between is cyclone fencing and a kind of lightweight timber framing, if you like. It's all fallen apart and a bit ramshackle. What we'd like to do is replace some of that infill cyclone fencing with a tennis court net, so that the landscaping that's been proposed by Will Dangar will be connected across the site. The tennis court, if you like, sits on one side of the site, the landscaping's on the other. The idea is to try and make that look continuous. So you step up the site from the tennis court to the lawn to the pavilion on the other side.
All right. Yeah, sorry. Hi, Robert. Tony again. Just so, is the retractable fence just intended for, or is it intended for all sides or just the sides?
No, just the side open to the
Pavilion.
Pavilion. Okay. And what would the other 3 sides therefore be?
I think at the moment we're going to probably restore them as they are. That side's the side that's most degraded. The other ones actually have planting growing through them and things like that we try to maintain.
Okay.
And that the architectural plans indicated that the whole of the fencing was to be replaced, it seemed to me. So we were just concerned that perhaps there should be some more detail provided for that lighting and fencing.
We're happy to provide that if you want to condition that, we're happy to provide that detail.
So you wouldn't object to a condition which just asks for details of the lighting and fencing for the court?
That's right. I would make the point that the lighting, tennis court lighting is always a controversial thing. I would make the point that the lighting is there, and there was no mention of that in our application. We don't intend to change it or any of that. So the idea was to look at retain the structure, if you like, and replace the cyclone fencing. We're happy to provide details of that, but and in fact, we can show the details of the existing lighting. I suppose that would be part of the detail, really.
Well, the thing is that they'd have to, the lights clearly would have to comply with the Australian standard.
Oh yeah, okay. I appreciate that. Just outside the scope of work at the moment.
Yep. Okay. All right then. Any other questions of Mr. Weir? No. No, I don't believe I have any other questions either. It was just we needed to clarify the lighting and fencing issue. And that was all, wasn't it?
That's all I've got.
Yep, yep. Very well. And Tina Ho, I don't know whether you're online.
No, that's all right. I think that came about. She's a member of my staff. She set up the meeting.
Oh, very well. Thank you very much. Okay, then, well, thank you all for participating. And as I said, the panel will be making a determination after this public meeting today, and our decision will be on the website generally by Friday, close of business. So I thank you all for attending and expressing your concerns and issues and ways that we can perhaps resolve some of these issues. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
We'll now move to item number 2. And item number 2 is a fit out for a bakery, bar and restaurant at the property known as 61 Lavender Street, Milsons Point, and this is a mixed use zone. We do have a number of submitters and people who made objections to this proposal. So I will invite those to address the panel in the first instance. So could I invite Bridget Noble?
It's Peter Noble.
Peter Noble.
Sorry, it's Bridget. I'm just using his laptop because the computer wasn't working.
Nice. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to put a few words forward for for myself and for other residents. I live in the Norths building, which is 118 Alfred Street on the corner of Lavender and Alfred Street, and our driveway is empty into Cliff Street. So we're very close and very affected by what goes on at 61 Lavender. I'm just going to discuss 3 main points. One is the parking, loading, particularly as it relates to Cliff Street, odour concerns and the hours of operation. The submissions that were sent to the officers, to the council, refers to at least 24 times to concerns about the parking issue, loading of deliveries and patrons. One of the assessment officer just refers to the fact that there is a lot of public transport in the area, but this will not be suitable for all patrons, particularly those out of area. And parking limitations are already a huge issue for local residents. A big scale function centre such as this one, especially because it's opening late into the evening, will necessitate some patron parking, and this is going to exacerbate the already existing shortage as there's no parking at all available in their building. Cliff Street has particular issues in this regard because we have multiple driveways that enter and exit into Cliff Street, which is hardly a street, it's almost a laneway really, and we have a lot of problems because of all the trucks and vans that have to do deliveries as it is. And our worry is that it will be inevitable that there will be more deliveries and the cars and trucks will stop in the street, and there'll be issues with the safety and the convenience of the use of our driveways. Another concern in this line is the danger that the increased pedestrian activity poses with the pedestrians crossing Lavender Street when they have to cross Cliff Street. it's already a very dangerous spot, often with restricted viewing, particularly for car parks in Cliff Street to do any loading. And it's very hard for us to exit our street, and it will also be very hard for Harbourview for the same reason. So I think the parking issue is a difficult one, which probably needs to be considered, I guess, by council when such huge scale projects are approved. Another thing I'd like to bring up is the concern with odour remission. I have looked at the report, but I don't have any technical knowledge about any of this, so I can only think about it in a very simple way. But what we are concerned about is that the exhaust placement is in Cliff Street, almost opposite our building. When I look at the odour impact assessment on page 183 of the conditions of approval report, it specifically recommends stack testing and compliance monitoring sensitive receptors during the busiest time of operation, and also it recommends discharge from both the restaurant and bakery should be emitted from a single discharge point in the centre of the roof. I don't really know what that all means, but I can see that there is some concern or acknowledgement by the people that have done this report that odour emission could be an issue, because it really coming out into the small street with buildings all around it. And I just wonder whether there could be mention of this, and whether we maybe need a second independent report with this, or whether there could be just a strong mention that we are very concerned about the effect of the odour emission. And the third and last point I'll make was regarding hours of operation. The council has obviously gone to great lengths to consider what they would call the maximum trading hours for a B4 trading. They must be considering the viability of businesses and the amenity of residents. And yet it's sort of surprised me that even though it's called maximum trading hours, this business has at the moment potentially got more than the maximum, which is a bit strange, and that they have now been allowed to trade from 7 a.m. to midnight on Monday to Wednesday, and then the maximum, which is 7 a.m. to midnight Thursday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday, plus their outdoor hours. A lot of the residents would like the council to reconsider this proposal by the development, and that their maximum trading hours be put back to the maximum trading hours, and that they not be granted the extra hour. It's a very confined space, and this restaurant bakery is surrounded on all sides by residents, the building it's in itself, our building, Latitude, Alchemy, and the terrace houses and the other units are all going to be affected by the noise, the movement of people, etc. And I think 11 o'clock seems a very generous time, especially in this area. We note that there is mention by the assessment officer that we are in the Milsons Point town centre. We'd never even heard of this expression, and we were quite surprised and thought there must have been a mistake. We looked it up. It's a pretty quiet sort of area, and we wouldn't have thought we were at the town centre. We probably placed the town centre as being around the station, opposite the station in Alfred Street, where there's a medical centre and a supermarket, and where the markets are, and that's probably what we would imagine the town centre to be. So we're surprised that that would be a consideration in allowing them the extra hour to be trading. So that was one point. And the last point, I don't want to take up too much time, but the last point is there's hours of trading and hours of operating that seem to be listed, and the bakery, which is we're a bit surprised that the bakery should want to go from 7 a.m. in the morning till 10 p.m. Seems very late and generous as it is, but they have put in a proposal to have operating hours, a 2-hour operating hour in the morning. So they want to be able to start their preparations at 5 a.m. I think this is really preposterous, and I hope that it will not be allowed. I think that we are predominantly a residential area, and really it seems excessive for them to need to have access to the building at that time. It'll inevitably mean that people are coming and going, and there'll be the machinery starts up, etc. If 6 a.m. were allocated, then that's more reasonable and still gives them time to start doing some preparation for their baked goods, but just makes it a more reasonable time for the residents. We have a lot of bedrooms all around this area will be affected by the noise. And we would particularly say that if whatever time they are allowed to start their operating, could it please be specified that they have to have their doors, including the door that opens into Cliff Street, closed till the trading hours commence, so that we have a little bit of privacy and protection from noise and odours. Thank you. And I just would make, if I could please just make one additional point. One of the residents in our building has sent in a submission to you regarding an acoustic report, and he's an engineer, and he was concerned with the acoustic report and felt that it might not fully cover the situation, and his proposal was that we should be allowed to have a second independent acoustic report, especially since this business is going to have outdoor seating and music and long hours. So if that were possible, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms Noble. And could I call upon Jocelyn Morton? Jocelyn Morton?
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry, I was just getting myself off mute.
Yes,
I think that's going to be the saying of 20 and 21. You're on mute. Chair, thank you very much for allowing us to appear. I'm here representing 55 Lavender Street, which is called Latitude, as chair of the building. Also, I've been asked to represent the views of Alchemy, which are the apartment blocks above the Curability Club, and the Milsons Point Community Group. So as Bridget has already said, Milsons Point is now really highly densely populated with these high-rise residential apartments, smack bang side by side, with very limited space between them, and unfortunately very limited internal parking, and even less so with the blue building, and the street parking is already at its absolute limit. It's jam-packed virtually every night. It should be noted that due to the proximity to the water here as well, any voice down on the street actually echoes up the buildings and resonates quite significantly, especially at night. There's an amazing echo. We can even hear things that happen across in McMahon's Point sometimes. All the residents, owners and tenants should be allowed peaceful enjoyment of their apartments. These are our homes. They're not just buildings, they're our homes. Latitude sits squarely between the Curability Club, with Alchemy above it, and Blue. And with the proposed 150-person restaurant situated on the western side, directly smack bang up against our building. We have 22 levels of bedrooms and lounge rooms directly across and above this proposed restaurant. Now, these residents bought or rented well before Blue was extended, both north and south. So they already suffer from a loss of view and close proximity of a new extended building. So to now also impose on them a 150-person restaurant that will be open until midnight even if we manage to restrict it to Monday to Wednesday at 11 p.m, the other nights, with the exception of Sunday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be midnight, plus another 30 minutes for patrons to leave before closing, after closing. And they openly state that they would like to host events and special occasions, which would have a significant detrimental impact on peaceful enjoyment of our homes. The original proposal, and I think this is the really important point, and I do question whether the people who have bought above these commercial enterprises have any idea about the change in nature of the commercial enterprises down below them. The original proposal was for 3 small businesses, which we had no objection to. This was a very late change. We did object when it was put before the council back in June, July. So this is not as though we've come late to the party. We objected right from the beginning, as did many other people in the community. And it has a very significant impact on us. And this is not the situation of, oh, well, the airport was already there when you bought your home, so why did you buy? That's not the case at all. This building was an office block when most people bought it. That's 61 Lavender Street I'm talking about. And it had a very small cafe at the bottom, which was primarily takeaway, which closed in the afternoon sometime, just depending how business was going, but was never open at night. So this is a completely changing character. We understood that the building, that there would be a residential building there at some stage, but it was very clear that what was going to be down at the bottom level was 3 small businesses. Now, you'll note from the extensive number of objections, there is strong dissatisfaction in the community about this DA. Our clear request has been, and still is, that it be rejected. If, however, it's not, then we seek serious changes to minimise the adverse amenity impact on the nearby residents. So our primary concern is around the size of the business. We understand that it's a B4, so it's going to be mixed. We understand that, but it's the size. 150 patrons, which lead to a significant consequential issue of noise, hours of operation, as Bridget mentioned, particularly late night trading, nil parking provision, no pick-up or drop-off location, and environmental concerns such as air discharge and waste removal. This is not the heart of the Milsons Point Town Centre. I know by definition it's within what's geographically described by council, and as Bridget said, we didn't even know that that was what it was called, and we all had a good laugh about calling our street, Lavender Street, a town centre. And that town centre is down between about 88 Alfred Street down to about Din Street in Alfred Street, directly opposite the station. And you can imagine that if this was at the bottom of a building like the Kimberley Clark building or something like that, which already has a very large supermarket at the bottom, well, it's already large, you can understand it. But that's not what we're talking about at this end. At this end, it's very thickly residential, with a lot of terrace houses on the other side. If you think of Alfred Street, there are no houses or residential on the other side of the street. There's ability for sound to go out and not to actually hit another residential property. Here, the sound that would resonate out directly will hit those little terrace houses. They have no way of protecting themselves and will echo up the buildings and straight into bedrooms, as I mentioned before. The lack of parking is really of significant issue to us. There is one tiny little no stopping area at the top of the parking. There's 8 parking spots at the front, and I think that Andrew will talk about this shortly. But there is that is such a dangerous location. There's a pedestrian crossing. We already have trouble, but people speed down Lavender Street. And as soon as they come down the roundabout and they're through the pedestrian crossing, they just floor it. And we have serious problem. We often have to call the police with the people hooning it up Lavender Street. But so what I'm trying to indicate is that Lavender Street, Bridget talked about Cliff Street, which is very true. It's very narrow, but then you come out into Lavender Street, which is an extremely busy street because it's now the thoroughfare through to the lower North Shore suburbs. There's no taxi rank. There's no safe location for drop off or pick up. And it's quite some distance from the train station. And it's a very long way from the ferry. There is no ferry in the upper Lavender Bay area. People think that there is, but there isn't. If I refer to section 7 of the NSDCP, it states quite clearly in the objectives to identify appropriate locations and trading hours for late night premises. We say this is not an appropriate location. Ensure that the late night trading premises will have minimal adverse impacts on the amenity of residential or other sensitive land uses. The impact is going to be significant. Just even merely people coming out at midnight and a bit drunk, having had a lovely night and deciding to have a huge big chat in the street because this is not their residence, this is not their home, but they're going to have a good old chat there. And the last point, the third point that's of relevance to us is Objective 3, which ensure that the operators of late night trading premises commit to good management practices through the implementation of robust plans of management. We have the Curability Club right beside us, and they go to huge lengths to make sure that that's the case, but they have to because they have a club license. We have no confidence that a company that is new to this sort of business will have the capacity, the manpower, or the ability to implement good management practices dealing with people who are leaving their premises in a form of drunken or other state, just even enjoying themselves. So with Latitude, North and Alchemy surrounding this building with bedrooms, balconies, lounge rooms in close proximity to this restaurant and the bakery, and outside patrons being allowed to be outside until 10 p.m, they'll be able to see directly into these apartments and the noise will travel directly into their bedrooms. The assessment officer states on page 38 that the additional hour of trade on Monday to Wednesday is not considered excessive and will be appropriately assessed subject to a trial period. I might just say, tell the people trying to sleep in their bedrooms right beside this restaurant, needing to be up for work early the next morning, that extra hour to midnight on a working night is not excessive. Plus, the business is also granted another 30 minutes for patrons to leave and for cleaning up of the business. So really, we're talking about 12:30 a.m. and then they might linger in the street for another 20 minutes waiting for an Uber or whatever. So if this was to proceed, and we really strongly object to it proceeding, but if it was, we asked the council and the planning committee to recommend to the council that they apply their own DCP rules, which is 11 p.m. and not a minute longer. If approved under this trial period, which we, as I said, we don't want, but if it was approved under this trial period, then the council must maintain a register of complaints to monitor and to agree to immediate action to reduce the hours if there is agreed number of significant complaints, maybe even just a couple per night. And if it goes on for more than a month of complaints, then the trial period has to cease. But as I said, that's not our preferred option. All we're trying to do there is to mitigate the impact of a very unacceptable situation. We want strict enforcement and no deviation from the condition that the assessment officer has put in his report of in I11 of no entertainment, we could not withstand the pressures of weddings and events. We already have a significant number of them occurring in Clark Park beside us to the left, but they're all daytime ones. And we also, it's one thing to have that out there, and we do have an issue with those, them parking all over the streets, etc. I cannot imagine if there was events and entertainment.
Yeah, there is already a condition for no entertainment, so that's not part of our consideration.
Okay, but all I'm just saying is please make sure that that sticks to. Andrew's going to deal with the waste and the deliveries, but I might just say that the location for the delivery, for those who don't know the layout well, is that the trucks must come into Harbourview Crescent, again a very small street, and then turn left into our property, which Blue has an easement over to go underneath, effectively underneath our building, to access the garbage and other areas. So because that's directly under, again, bedrooms and lounge rooms, we ask for, under no circumstances there be an allowance of collection of garbage and delivery on weekends. Our residents have got to be allowed to have some days where there are no trucks coming in and out underneath their apartments.
Thank you.
On the balcony, just 2 more points. On the balcony, it's proposed that there be a minimum 1 millimetre PVC curtain is proposed to stop the noise from the restaurant. Firstly, I'd say 1 millimetre will not withstand. It says a minimum, so I'm assuming it's going to be much thicker, but won't withstand the wind, and 1 millimetre will not shield any noise. That needs to be a really substantial petition if it continues. And in addition, we've had no opportunity to obtain our own independent acoustic engineering report. We have, there are different acoustic engineers, and we have had experience with this acoustic engineer report that's in this paper, and I don't want to say anything further, but we would prefer that an acoustic engineer that we trust and we've commissioned for many testing in our building, much testing in our building, be allowed to be used, that we can engage an independent report. And that Aqualand pay for that report, but we be allowed to go onto the property and do proper acoustic testing, because it's not going to open until May, so we have time. It's not as though they need to open in a week's time. We have time to do a proper independent report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms Morton. Now, Mr Andrew Crofts, can I invite you to address the panel, bearing in mind you don't need to repeat anything that has already been said. Thank you.
Hi, and thank you for letting me speak to you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Yep.
So firstly, the reason I'm here is because the residents have their views on this, and the Curability Club is separate as a business that operates in the area. So it's important for me to clarify that. I'm also here with requests from some of the members, residents of the area, as we are heavily involved with the community and have achieved that by good management practices and communication. So I'm probably here more of a constructive nature than one of opposition.
Yep.
However, I'd like that to be noted. So the main point that considers the club is the parking, and there is a lack of parking in the area. The club has a certain amount of spaces, but obviously they're restricted, and also the street. So there should be some consideration, as pointed out by Joycelyn and Bridget, in that regard. I understand by the information, like section 10.2, saying that originally there was no consent in place to have additional parking, I would just request that that is reconsidered. In terms of the other points mentioned, without going back over them, I would say in terms of the hours of operation, the club works within its within the conditions of its within the conditions from the council, and we actually work under. So we do not go over any of these, and we don't push the boundary, because we found that by operating transparently with the residents in the area, we've achieved quite an amicable and coherent relationship with them, which allows us and the business to flourish in that area. In terms of the air discharges, I'm also not a specialist. However, reviewing the document, I would say that there's been considerable thought and process gone into that. And I'd say that, you know, even the use of the air mist would be the most up-to-date and possibly even better technology for this use. The bakery discharges in the roof, the club's exhaust discharges from the roof, and we have no complaints about that odour. So I'd say that the main issue amongst the residents is the discharge from the restaurant into Cliff Street. However, with the use of the air mist and the UV system, I'd say that there's probably not much better that they could do in terms of that. However, if there is a concern there should be a means for residents to.
Well, can I say in that regard, there's a condition I-21, which is for odour control systems, etc., and for any recourse if it causes offence. Sure. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, so that's fine. In terms of the garbage, I understand that they've requested for 7-day pickups, and I can understand why as a business you would do that. The club also has that and is allowed to do that. However, we've restricted our pickups to 5 days a week for the basis of minimising any effects on residents in the area. So I'd say that from the club's point of view, the reason why I'm here is to give advice to Etamon and the managers of the business, as transparency and interaction and engagement with the business is obviously the preferred option. And I'd say that a lot of residents would prefer that too. The main concern for the club is the parking, as stated, and I'm happy to take any other questions or anything that they would like to know as a person or as a business that operates in the area, because I feel that in terms of revitalising the suburb, competition is good for any business as long as it's well managed, and that comes down to ensuring that these things are outlined in the beginning for future changes, as you know, ownership and management may change down the track. The residents possibly won't.
Yep.
So that's the reason why I'm here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crofts, and we'll certainly look at the conditions and the recommendations, and we have heard your submissions. I will now invite the applicants and their representatives to address the panel. I have Randy Leung, Lisa Hobbs, Jeff Ellis and Kaima Doyle. I'm in your hands as to who goes first. Thank you.
Good afternoon, panel. Can you hear me okay? Is that coming through?
Yes, we can. Okay,
perfect. I took notes while the various objectors were raising those concerns, and I'll just work through them, I guess, as succinctly as I can. And then if you have any questions or want to, raise anything, feel free. And yes. Just so you know, Randy Lang and Jeff Ellis, they're from Aqualand, and they're the project manager and project planner of the base building. And we have Lisa Hobbs with us from Edamon, and she's the proposed new venue owner and operator. So obviously, concerns that were raised about, management and things like that, obviously she's here to address if you have any concerns. But I just want to highlight, as it has been said, the site is located within a mixed use zone, and there's also a specific development standard that requires an active ground floor use on this site. So the proposed restaurant and bakery is completely in line with the zone's using, and also the specific development standard that applies to this site that encourages you know, that active, vibrant use on the ground floor. So in that respect, you know, we are, you know, in line with the zoning and the development standards. And I also think that the proposed restaurant and bakery will provide a really great local service and great new food and beverage offering to the community. But obviously I understand there's some concerns that have been raised. So I'll just work through them as quickly as I can. So I think one of the main ones was parking. Now that was largely considered as part of the base build DA when the building was converted from an office building to a mixed use development. And as part of that, the ground floor commercial use was approved, and 4 of the existing car spaces within the building were converted and allocated to this commercial use. So this DA is for a fit out and use of an existing commercial, you know, floor plate, and there's no additional GFA being, no additional, you know, retail commercial GFA being proposed as part of this DA. So there's no specific requirement to provide additional parking. And also council's parking rates require set out maximums, not minimums for development. And I'd like to highlight the site is in close proximity to a number of public transport options. And I think this is a good location in terms of that accessibility. You've got a bus stop right out the front and the train station not too far away. Loading and deliveries, as it's been mentioned, they are going to take place from Harbourview Crescent, not Cliff Street. And the site has on-site loading and unloading, and all waste management will take place from within the basement. So concerns around loading and unloading occurring from the street, that's not going to take place. That's outlined in our waste management plan, and it's also been appropriately conditioned within the consent. Hours of operation was raised by a couple of the objectors, in particular this extra hour that we've been granted by council. What they're referring to is we've been granted an extra hour from 11 p.m. to 12 midnight, Monday to Wednesday, and that's above the current DCP controls. In all likelihood, the restaurant is unlikely to operate past 11 p.m., you know, Monday to Wednesday. Those hours are under a trial. If the panel is overly concerned about this extra hour that we've been granted, it's not a huge concern to the operator, given the timing of that and how the premise would be run. There was concern raised about the bakery opening at 5 a.m. What that is that's simply to allow 1 or 2 staff members to come on site and get the various baked goods ready for service. It's not about being open to the public. It's not necessarily about doing a lot of prep, because the bakery machinery actually runs overnight, and they will come in the morning, collect the bread and simply get the shop ready for service. There are specific conditions, I believe, that have been imposed regarding the doors must be closed. Staff must be trained to understand that this is a sensitive hour, and when they're on site, you know, they respect, you know, residents in the area. Was there anything else on hours? I don't think so. It's been raised a couple of times, and that's regarding the odour. So the bakery exhaust will discharge to the roof, and obviously we would have preferred the restaurant to discharge to the roof. But because this is a refit of an existing commercial building, we really had to work with the structure that was in place, and there's simply not the space to discharge the restaurant exhaust to the roof. So as an alternative design, we're discharging it to Cliff Street, and have, you know, engaged an odour specialist and also a mechanical ventilation specialist. All those technical reports have been provided to council. It's the state-of-the-art machinery, as has been confirmed very kindly by the adjacent club. And again, this is appropriately conditioned with recourse should there be any issue with that. There was concern raised regarding the acoustic report. This acoustic report was prepared by a professional. It's been peer reviewed by council, and there's appropriate conditions within the consent that ensure that the premises with its ongoing management will satisfy the various you know, standards that apply. The PVC curtain was recommended by the acoustic consultant. I believe it was council that raised that, and we were more than happy to implement it. What else? And just quickly regarding noise, I'd just like to say, look, the hours are restricted with appropriate trial hours. The capacities are restricted, in particular the outdoor areas. No music is allowed outside, no live entertainment. The outside area will cease trading at 10 p.m. We have a plan of management in place that outlines all the various, management practices that will be put in place to ensure the premise is managed appropriately. There's obviously going to be a register of complaint, as with all licensed premises. And I think the last point to address is waste management. Again, this is to occur on site. And again, the appropriate management practices to ensure that it's not going to disturb neighbours in the area and amenity and the like.
Just to clarify that is to take place solely within the basement?
I believe so. Randy, do you want to, and Jeff can double confirm that for me? Oh.
Lisa Hobbs.
Not connected.
Yep.
I think that they might be having issue with their audio.
Yeah.
Okay. Very well.
My understanding is yes.
Yeah, and my understanding is that it is as well. It's not the fact that it's the basement that it's concerned, it's the fact that the trucks have to drive up the easement under our building to get to the basement.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you. So if I can hear then from Miss Lisa Hobbs and Jeff Ellis.
Can you hear us now? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thanks, Kayema, for covering all of the technical details. And from our perspective, firstly, just to say that we acknowledge all of the objections that have come to light, not just now, but previously, and that we take them all very seriously. Andrew, thank you also for your constructive comments and your advice. As Andrew knows, Etimon Projects is a group of hospitality professionals. It's not that we're new to this type of business or to the industry in general, but just to give the panel and everybody on the call a brief background, Etimon Projects is part of Aqualand. We are the services and hospitality business of Aqualand, and we're here within this development to add value to the development and to the community overall. We are not only at the senior leadership team, in my team, in Etimon Projects, hospitality professionals with long history. We are hiring seniors on venue who can manage the plan of management that we have set out and who can, work within the conditions of consent and generally ensure that everything runs well. We don't want to detract from the Milson Point community. We want to add value, as I say. In terms of the things that Kayema's covered and in terms of what has been raised here today, just reiterating, if it's 11 p.m. closed Monday to Wednesday, that's not an issue for us. If there's a restriction on waste pickups to 5 days, that is not an issue for us either. We can absolutely do that. And we, as Andrew knows, Andrew and I do talk frequently, we definitely intend to work in with the Curability Club to ensure that we are in line with what they are doing as well, given they have been doing this a lot longer in the local area. I guess just finally to give comfort around the style of venues that we're opening. Yes, the bistro overall can have a maximum of 150 seats, but that's broken up into internal of 120 and external of a maximum of 30 up till 6 p.m. in the evening. And then after 6 p.m. that 30 goes down to 20 and the doors are closed to the restaurant. So notwithstanding the PVC curtain, the numbers changing outside, it's also an a la carte restaurant. It is not a function centre. We do not intend to hold functions of 150 people at a time. It's a la carte service, which means people are staggered on the way in and on the way out. And our plan of management covers how our staff will assist not only with the responsible service of alcohol and ensuring that people work within the rule, dine within the rules, but also when they're leaving the premise that they are mindful of the area that they are leaving and to leave as quietly as possible. Just to read out as well, it was mentioned before, there is no entertainment. There will be music within the venue, but not live music, and definitely no entertainment. Two other points, and that is that we intend to open in July, not in May. and also that Etimon Projects being part of Aqualand, we intend to own and operate these venues for a long while. So it's not a short-term prospect for us, and there won't be a change of management. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ms Hobbs. And does anybody else from the applicant's team wish to address the panel? No? No? Very well. I'll just see if the other panel members have any questions. No?
Yes, I have a question of Bridget Noble. You're in 118 Alfred Street. Which level is your apartment? How does it relate to the bakery and the restaurant?
Sorry, forgot to unmute. Is that better? Yes, we're on the Cliff Street side. So we're just across the road from where the bakery is, a bit further back. Yeah, so I am concerned about the bakery, and something I did actually forget to mention, so thank you. It gives me an opportunity to say it. In the acoustic report, it does say that the doors to the restaurant will be closed from 6 p.m. to the outside, but it says that the bakery doors will be open. And I wonder why that is, because that concerned me greatly, because why do they need to be open when...
The boulangerie, the bakery and the trattoria will be closed from 6 p.m. as well, and they'll also be closed before 7 a.m. as well.
Okay, I think that's...
Okay then.
That's not written somewhere, but thank you.
Yep. Thank you. We'll ensure that we'll look at the conditions in our consideration of this matter, and nobody else is registered to speak. So
I've got one question.
So we do have one question from Tony.
Just a clarification from Andrew. You there, Andrew?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Just the current opening hours for the Curability Club.
So currently under COVID, they're reduced. So we're only open 5 days. We open at 11. We're 11 till 10.
Okay. Post COVID. Or pre-COVID? What were the hours?
So pre-COVID, we're open from 10 until 10 till 10 on Sunday, 10 till 11 on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then until midnight on Friday and Saturday.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. We will be considering all the submissions and we will be making a determination later this afternoon, and our decision will be on the internet by close of business on Friday. And thank you all for attending today. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is number 3, which is 1 to 11 Rodborough Avenue, Crow's Nest. And I have an objector or submitter who wishes to address the panel, and I have the applicant also online. So can I first of all invite Myron Hartley-Hole?
Yep. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, think we can.
Okay, fantastic. Look, so I've read that the council's has not approved this application to go ahead. I don't really understand how kind of you guys interact with the council and whether or not you might approve it, you know, subject to changes. I just don't know. I've never been involved with any of these before.
Can I just say that we are an independent panel. I don't know whether you were on from the beginning, but yeah, we are an independent panel, and we receive the officers' reports, and we make our independent determination following the meeting. Yes?
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, I guess I just don't know, you know, if council's already recommended it, I just don't know if I can add too much other than to put I guess my little case forward, which I'll do as quickly as I can. So I've got 6 points that I'm going to address.
Yep. Can I also let you know that we have read your submission that was forwarded to us as well.
Okay, thank you. Look, the reason I want to address the panel is that I've attended a precinct meeting, and the precinct people advised that really the only way to have any influence on the outcome of the proposal is to have a number of people speaking at the panel in support of your case. So that's what I was advised, and that's why I've come along. So thank you for reading my submission, and everything. I don't have too much more to cover in that, other than perhaps the insufficiency of the notice that I think has been given for the development. But that's not my main point. I think my main point, which I just want to put across, is I've made a request to the developer, or what little information I could find on the project manager by reading through all of the submissions, for assistance for relocation while the development's underway. The reason I've sought that out is that one of my sons was born prematurely back in August, and he's been diagnosed as being at very high risk of a disability. Well, just so as not to be secretive about it, it's cerebral palsy, but I don't want to get that out just for his benefit for when he grows up. So my concern is that the noise from jackhammering out the bedrock, from trucks coming and going all day, from demolition and construction activity, trucks being loaded and unloaded, it's going to disturb his sleep. And my belief is that his best chance of not developing the disease, along with a program, an early intervention program that's being provided by Cerebral Palsy Australia, is for him not to be woken up when he's trying to sleep. And I just can't imagine, with bedrock being jackhammered, 5 to 10 meters, probably not even 10 meters from our apartment, that he's not going to get the sleep he needs. So I've sought request from the developer. I've received no response from them, so I don't really know if they are going to help or not. I've spoken to the mayor as well. She was helpful, but she said she hasn't seen anyone come to the party with a request like this before. And everyone else in council that I've spoken to puts across this thing that makes a point that they're very sorry for us, but there's nothing they can do. It's not the forum. And I just want to know what is the forum? How can it be that I either have to subject my baby to potentially harmful activity of this development, or I've got to stump up the cash and move away for 6 months, and then this very anonymous developer gets to come in, build a massive building, and walk away with quite enormous profits. I actually have no objection about that. I do a commercial role for a living, but goodness, I feel like I'm in a very lonely place at the moment. So that's my point number one. My point number two, I'll probably just bring up this insufficient notice. I'm not the only person impacted by this. There's quite a large daycare centre next to us on Rodborough Avenue, and then the next building down is a school. The most recent round of development submissions and public feedback has taken place over a period over sort of late December, early January, when both the school and the childcare business were closed. I spoke to the childcare business on Monday. They didn't know that this meeting was even happening today, but they want to speak. I'm actually surprised that they're not speaking, given the impact of a development on a daycare business. So that's one issue I have with insufficient notice. The other issue I have with insufficient notice is that the signage on the 7 houses is not sufficient to inform people that there is a block of 50 units being proposed. There's a small sign up one end of the street, there's a small sign up the other end of the street. Both signs are mounted on sort of the most recessed part of the fence. It's difficult to see the 2 signs from one point, and the impression that I get, and that maybe most other neighbours get, is that it's actually 2 of those houses have applied to do small developments within their own houses. So my request is that the notice period be started again, bigger notice be put up so that it's clear to anyone surrounded by the development that it actually is a massive development, and 2, to give the school and the daycare centre the opportunity to submit their feedback at a point in time where they're actually in at work and they know, or they're at work and around at the time of the feedback. That's my point number 2. My other points are pretty much in line with the feedback that I've already submitted. which is firstly the top floor of the building. I know this is an issue for council as well. It puts my flat in shadow. I sent through a one-page document just with a copy of the shadow diagram and another diagram to the planning panel this morning. I apologise, I simply didn't know that I should have done this earlier. Look, a lot of these processes, you just kind of stumble across things. It's not clearly laid out to people like me what you need to do and when. But anyway, that's a side issue. If you look at the developer's shadow diagram, which I've submitted, I've also drawn the location of my flat compared to that shadow diagram. And you can see the top floor will put the shadow just next to my apartment at 9 o'clock in the morning, but before 9 o'clock, it appears to me that I'll be in shadow. Now, we're getting up and getting ready for work early in the morning. There are two other units on this level that are going to have the same problem. My feeling is it's going to reduce the use and enjoyment of, this flat that I bought, 12 years ago now, without, without imagining that such a large project would ever take place across the road. The height breaches also the council's height regulations, and where none of the other developments around breach. And I just, look, it seems like this top floor is just a try-on to bung a few more apartments on top for these guys to sell, whoever these guys might be. My next objection is there are two issues that I have with the glass windows of all of the Rodborough Avenue facing apartments in the development. All of those units are going to have, which is firstly privacy. A good half of those units are going to stare straight into my living room, which means I'm going to be more likely to have to close my blinds if I want to be in my living room. Not in the summer because there are trees in the summer, but the trees all, the leaves all fall off in the winter and they'll be able to see straight in the winter. My second issue is that I can tell you without doubt there is going to be a lot of glare coming off the glass of the 5 stories of the building as it's proposed. I've included a photo of the glare that I took with my phone on the weekend where a car parked just in an unfortunate position. Now, I tell you what, you can look at the photo on the screen, but you couldn't stand and look outside because the glare was too bright. So I had to close my curtains so I could sit in my lounge room. Now, that whole building is covered in glass windows, which are going to reflect. So my request is that if it is allowed at some point, even in a scaled back form, that the developer puts some kind of privacy screening and a non-glare surface over those windows so that I don't have people looking in my lounge room, and likewise I'm not looking in other people's living rooms, and to stop the glare, which I can absolutely guarantee you will be a problem. My next and second last issue is the noise from the common areas. So there is common areas, 2 100-metre common areas have been, they're open plan spaces on the top of the 3rd story of the building. They were first designed to be overlooking the high school. The developer seems to have moved them up the other end, which unfortunately is directly across the road from my unit. Now, they're going to be really noisy. They are going to be used for entertainment. I know this because there are plenty of other units around here where the people use their balconies for entertaining. I know the developers put in that the noise is going to be okay because it will only be 60 decibels at the boundary of the property. That's not the reality. The reality is people are going to be out there having parties, probably most weekends. They'll probably go to, past midnight because it regularly happens around here. And I tell you, it's going to be more than 60 decibels and it's going to wake me up, on a regular basis. And I'm not as close as 2 or 3 of the unit blocks that are on Falcon Street. My first note to council was I was flabbergasted that anyone would even put these up. I mean, just the disturbance of the peace to all of the neighbouring residences is gobsmacking, and that they're still there and still put up for approval is something I don't understand. If this development is approved in some form at some point in the future, I really strongly request that these entertainment common areas are not allowed. The buildings that are already here just don't have the soundproofing to deal with people's parties. my last, look, even if it's not a party, even if it's just, you know, a large gathering, at night, it's a very quiet street and we are going to be woken up. And that's, you know, assuming that the entertainment spaces use is limited to weekends. There'll probably be people there, residents who will use them on weeknights as well. So my last point, thank you for everyone's time. My last point is just the anonymity of the developer and the project manager, neither of whom seem to have any, they don't seem to exist. This Mossman Finance No. 9 and Project Platform Services on the internet. And to me, you know, a reputable and reliable company, you know, you'd know who you were dealing with. I guess the key concerns I have is that there has been another development up on West Street that went insolvent partway through construction and sat there with a crane hanging over the street for many, many months. Dealing with an unknown party like this, you don't know if they're solvent, if they've got enough funds, you know, what's the plan? And then, you know, that's probably my key concern. And I mean, you know, it's just, I like to know who I'm dealing with, and I don't think it gives me a lot of cause for worry that these people just won't identify themselves at all. That's all of my points. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hartley-Hull. You can stay on the line to hear what the applicant's representatives wish to say, and we do ask them to respond to submitters' concerns. Can I invite Nathan Grice?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
I can't see you.
Sorry.
Nathan
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to. I'm only just going to briefly pass on to Matthew Billing, who is going to respond to the comments.
So first of all, Nathan, what's your role in the project?
So I'm the project manager, and I'm the applicant on the submission.
Okay. So what did you say?
I said I'm going to pass on to my colleague Matthew Billing, who's going to quickly address some of the concerns.
Matthew Billing.
Also Matthew Billing, yes.
Okay. G-I-L-L-I-N-G?
No, sorry, Billing. B-I-L-L-I-N-G, yes.
Billings, thank you. Matthew Billings. Can we see you, Matthew Billings, please?
You can indeed. I'm just trying to get my video to work.
Yep.
Hello there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. So would you like to address the panel and respond to some of the issues that you heard from the submitter?
So, yep, my name is Matt Billing. I work for Platform Project Services. I'm the development director for this project. Look, I guess in terms of responding to the individual items, throughout Council's report, I believe that they've addressed the concerns raised by Myron, and they've recommended, should the panel decide to approve the application, which is currently recommended for refusal by Council, then there are a number of conditions that Council are recommending be put into the development consent to address Myron's concerns in terms of the construction impact, the height, the noise, the amenity, privacy, etc. And I have no problem with those recommendations that Council have put forward in their report.
As you know, the recommendation is for refusal.
It is.
Yeah, but if we have a mind to...
Yeah, I know. I heard you say that, but do you want to make any comment with respect to... I understood that you submitted some amended plans rather belatedly.
Oh, look, we were hopeful that we would be able to work with Council based on that last round of feedback to continue discussions with Council and the Design Excellence Panel to put forward amended plans in accordance with their recommendations. But unfortunately, that's been Council have determined that they'd rather put it forward for refusal than continue to seek further amendments. So
you always have an opportunity to come back with amended plans under section 8.2.
We do, and that's what we propose to do after talking to Council, that we couldn't change Council's mind to not get a recommendation for refusal at this point. So we'll continue to work with council via the 8.2 process to address the concerns raised in the report.
And you might also take on board some of the concerns you heard from the submitter in clearly doing your amendments. And whilst I can't speak for the whole panel, but it certainly seems to be an overdevelopment of the site that we have in the plans before us.
Okay, noted.
Thank you. Okay then, rightio. Well, we'll end the conversation on this particular item number 3 on the agenda, and we'll move to the next agenda item. Our decision will be on the council's website, probably close of business Friday, if not Monday. So thank you all for participating in today's meeting.
Thank you.
Now, I'll move now to the next item, which is item number 4. And this is in respect of advertising signs, 3 in fact, at 229 and 231 Miller Street, North Sydney. We have a submitter to address the panel, and we also then have the applicant's town planner. So can I invite Brooke Bowley?
Yeah, Boyelle, close enough.
If it's all right, panel, I might speak first just because I might frame some of the issues that we've got. My name's Paula Motek. I'm from Platino Properties.
Sorry, what's your name?
Paula Motek. I'm the other registered speaker, I believe.
You're not on my list. Yes. Oh, it's been updated. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong list. Okay, yes, thank you.
That's all right. No trouble. So I just wanted to raise a couple of issues. We note that council's recommendation is to approve the 2 signs at the lower level of the building, but refuse the sign on the northern facade at the upper level. So I'll just talk to that sign number 1, which is that one on the northern facade, if I might. We feel that there are a couple of issues in the report that we wanted to address. I note that the reason for the refusal of that sign is that it's inconsistent with the desired character of the B4 mixed-use zone, and that it's non-compliant with the building height controls specified in clause 4.3 of the LEP. So there are a couple of issues I just wanted to point out to the panel before they make their decision. The first is that we originally classified these signs as business identification signs, all 3 of them, because while the sign on 231's facade isn't technically the building within which Work B is located, it's contiguous with the site at 229, which is the Battle Axe, within which Work B are now operating. It's quite an unusual space for Work B because they don't have a direct street frontage to Miller Street, so they really don't have a presence to any street. They have a laneway access at the rear, but from Miller Street it's quite hard to find, and actually Brooke is going to address that in a moment. So that is the nature of the signage that we're proposing. It's I understand why council have decided to categorise it as an advertising sign, but I would say that in that case it is really advertising the business that's operating at the base of the development that is contiguous to that building. So that's the first point. The second point is that the council's report has classified that sign as a roof or a sky advertisement. I'm not quite clear on why that's been done, because it doesn't, to my mind, meet the definition of a roof or sky advertisement that's in SEP 64, which is that it's an advertisement displayed on or erected on or above the parapet or eaves of a building. To my mind, it more appropriately would be to find it as a wall advertisement, which is an advertisement that is painted on or fixed flat to the face of the wall of a building, which is exactly what it is. In fact, it's a painted background, painted directly onto the facade, and 50 mil deep letters that are fixed flush to pretty much flush to the face of the building on top of the painted hexagon. So while it's been assessed as a sky sign, I don't really feel that that's appropriate. So if I then consider it as a wall advertisement, I think it does in fact meet all of the requirements of a wall sign, which is there's only one per elevation. There's only one on that northern elevation. It's been integrated with the design of the building. It does not exceed 10% of the size of that facade. It doesn't protrude more than 300 millimetres from the facade. It doesn't protrude above the eaves or parapet. It doesn't cover a window or other opening, and it doesn't obscure any architectural elements of the building. And just back on that, integrated with the design, I guess that leads me to my next point, which is the height. Now, granted, it does actually sit above the height of building control in the LEP, which is RL 130. The sign is at approximately 135 to the middle of the sign, if you like. Now, the other thing that Council's report doesn't seem to do is consider Section 6 or Part 6 of the LEP, which is specifically relating to the North Sydney Centre, within which the site is located. Part 6 expressly says that the provisions of Part 6 take precedence over the other parts of the LEP. So while it is over the 130, it is at Council's, Council has the ability to approve things that are over that height where they don't overshadow additionally or whatever, which clearly this sign doesn't. The reason we didn't keep the sign under the height is because, number one, the approved building sits at a maximum height, I think from memory it's about RL 137. So the building is already there, obviously, and to meet the requirement to integrate the sign properly with the facade, we located it where we did, which you can see on the photo montage that was part of the DA package. Having it lower, number one, to our mind, didn't look right, and number two, it impacted much more on the adjoining residential apartments, which would in fact look directly at it. Now, where we've located it, it's well above the level of the highest apartment adjoining, so it wouldn't be within their eye line unless they were right on the edge of their balcony directly looking up at the sign. So that was the reason that we located it above that RL 130. We did do a very quick photo montage to show, and if I can just, Brooke, can you reach over and share the screen?
You probably just hold it up.
Oh, I can probably just hold it up if you can see that. So what we did is we just marked up, you can see it, that is the sign sitting below RL 130. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep. So as I said, we felt that wasn't really appropriate and it didn't meet the requirement to be properly integrated with the facade of the existing building. The objectives of the North Sydney Centre Part 6 of the LEP, because the other main issue that Council seemed to be concerned with was that it wasn't in keeping with the character of the B4 zone. The size obviously zone B4, and I know a lot of the objections to the signage talked about the fact that it wasn't in keeping with the residential nature of the buildings. In fact, there is a requirement, as you would be aware, that there cannot be residential use on the ground floor of these buildings. It must be a non-residential use, which we've obviously complied with, and Brooke is leasing one of those spaces. So to support that, people need to be able to find him. So as I said in the beginning, I mean, that is very much the nature of these signs. It's about providing information about the business that is within this development. The objectives of the B4 zone, just to take Council's point, I feel that we are consistent with the objectives of the B4 zone. They are to provide a mixture of compatible uses, so it's not just about residential, that to integrate suitable businesses, office with other uses, which and to create interesting and vibrant mixed-use centres, and to maintain existing commercial space within mixed-use buildings. That's exactly what we are trying to support. The objectives of Part 6.
That seems to be pretty clear to me, that one.
The objectives of Part 6 of the LEP, which I also take precedence over the objectives of the B4 zone because they are within the North Sydney Centre. Those objectives are to maintain the status of North Sydney as a major commercial centre, to maximise commercial floor space capacity and employment growth, and to encourage the provision of high-grade commercial space, amongst a couple of other things. But to my mind, I mean, we are clearly doing those things. We are seeking to make the space at the ground floor of these buildings viable. A lot of the spaces, often when you get shop top housing, the stuff on the bottom just is like a dead zone because it doesn't work. Where, especially given that this is a battle axe without a proper frontage to Miller Street, we're really trying to give it the best shot. And we feel that having these signs is really consistent with those objectives.
So in terms of your street level presence, the two signages, well, they're business identification signages, the ones at street level.
Yep.
This being, it doesn't matter whether the building's contiguous or not, it certainly is an advertisement.
That's right. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
I guess what I'd say is that it's not third-party advertising. It's advertising the building that's at the base of the development.
Yes. So I'm just trying to understand why people cannot find you by your other signage.
Well, I guess I might pass over to Brooke now. He's actually working in the building now. He's the owner of Workbee. They've been there for about 5 weeks, haven't you, Brooke?
Yeah, so we've been open for about 5 weeks now. And yeah, it is, because it has no street frontage, it is posing a little bit difficult for our members, couriers, and just people coming and using our space to find it. I think the difference between a traditional office and a co-working space is that we do have transient people often, so it is vital to our business for people to be able to find us easily.
Can I just ask the question, if you've got a courier coming, I'm sure he's looking at eye level, he's not looking up into the sky to find out where Workbee is.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think it's just what was obviously beneficial to our business is that people driving down Miller Street into the main kind of CBD of North Sydney would be able to recognise the sign and see us and
see that there is a co-working space in that location.
Yeah, I think that's it's important for us, because I mean there is a lot of businesses inside North Sydney that have street frontages, that have a lot more awareness, and there's a lot of signage on the top of buildings in North Sydney as well. So our sign I said from the beginning, I don't need it to be illuminated because I don't want to disrupt any of the residents in the area. But I thought it would assist us greatly in showing that where we are, so that people knew that our brand, and I think people are becoming familiar with our brand, that there's a co-working space that they can use coming into North Sydney.
Yes, I should have made that point. We have not proposed that sign be illuminated, obviously, because we understand that would have had an unnecessary level.
Yep, I understood that. Okay, and any other panel members have a question? No. And Paula Motic, are you? Oh, so you're Paula. You've been addressed. Terribly sorry, Paula.
That's all right. No problem.
Yep. Okay. Rightio. So we haven't got anybody else identified to address the panel. So we will take on board what you've said to us today. As you know, the recommendation, there's no problem with 2 and 3. It's just, and also the technicality of whether a clause 4.6 written request for variation is required. So
just to make it clear, we did provide a 4.6 variation because council did request that. So we provided that.
Yep. Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so we will be considering this in our closed session, and our decision will be on the internet Friday or Monday at the latest. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Right.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next matter that we have on the agenda this afternoon is number 5, which is 4 Holt Street, McMahon's Point. I have the applicant and planner on the line. I don't believe there are any submitters for this matter. So can I invite Rocky Zapier and Greg Foster to address the panel? Yes, and if you can take yourselves off mute. You're muted.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Greg Foster. I'm the planner for the project. and happy to answer any questions in relation to the issues.
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. You've read the conditions. You may wish to address the panel on the conditions. There's a deferred commencement proposed for design changes required.
I'll defer that to Mr. Zapier, who's the architect in regard to that matter.
Okay, Mr. Zapier, the architect, thank you.
Hi, I must admit I didn't get as far as the conditions, much to my embarrassment. Can I just quickly have a look now, do you mind?
Yes, it is a deferred commencement, isn't it, this one? Yep.
No.
Commencement over the increased setback to the...
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah, you haven't read the conditions.
No, I've read through the report and made my notes, but I haven't actually gone as far as the conditions.
Okay.
I wasn't aware. I'll just do that quickly now. I'll just start at the conditions, I imagine.
Oh no, it's just conditions. It's not a deferred.
Yeah, I didn't think that. Okay, I thought I missed it. Sorry. Right.
No, terribly sorry. I was incorrect. There's another one. It's just a list of conditions. So you've got those.
Yep.
Yep. You've got no problems with the conditions?
No, we're fairly satisfied with it all.
Good, great. Okay then. All right. Well, we'll be making our decision, and and thank you for your patience in waiting around. We'll be making our decision. It'll be on council's website Friday or Monday. I think there is one question about the technical BCA or NCC question.
Hi, Rocky. Tony Caro speaking.
Hi.
I just wanted to understand about the amenity of the ground floor from the plans. That's one, the first question. And the second one is, can you just tell me about, I'm presuming this is air conditioning, where the plant's located?
The plant's going to be located, it's going to be wall hung within the car park area because there's quite a high ceiling through there, particularly that the front of the building where the roller shutter's located, that zone there. If you look at the section, we've actually got a raised, that terrace planter on the next level up. It's actually a raised section above the floor.
We'll just get the drawings. Thanks.
So if you look at section A on drawing DA10,
yes,
there's actually quite a high section of ceiling space over the roller door, and that's where we intend to run some of those services, including the air conditioning units. They're just going to be split systems. It's not a big space.
Okay, so they're condenser units.
That's right.
If you have a look, sorry.
Yeah, okay. And the second question was just about, I guess, the amenity of the lower floor, which really kind of opens onto a waste handling area and a car park.
Yep.
With kind of a modest skylight at the back.
Well, it's actually, I don't know, have you guys been out on site?
Yes.
Yes. Well,
yeah, that condition exists now, and what we're actually improving on that condition because we'll have that skylight at the back will provide a lot of sunlight to the back part of the office that it doesn't get at the moment, and I think the ceiling height will be slightly higher as well through there. So I think the amenity will be better. Than what's there now.
It gets very little light from the street side, though, does it not?
It does. Yeah, that's right. It's facing due south. Yep.
Yeah, and there's a very large overhang through to the roller door.
There is, but the overhang to the roller door is up higher, so it's going to allow a bit more light to come through.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Something about the parapet.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. The roof parapet. You know, it's in terms of a build-up to provide for drainage falls, insulation, ballast, to mitigate the heat load onto the roof. I think that what you've shown is inadequate, and it's probably going to be a significantly, well, at least another 300 millimetres. Would you agree with that?
Is that, sorry, the new roof or the existing, the new parapet or the existing parapet?
Sorry, look, that this is a sloping roof, is that right?
Yes.
It's a gable roof.
The top,
Yes.
the topmost roof. Yep, it is.
Yep. Look, that's fine. It's like the roof's slightly out of the height zone towards the front, but I think that's okay.
Great.
I'm fine, thank you.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, our decision will be on the internet Friday or Monday. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.